speaking as well. Thank you. And we also have live captioning on as well. So I'm hoping that that also addresses some barriers as well for those of you who need some extra support. So for today, we're talking about continuing our discussion on inclusion safety, psychological safety in the workplace, focusing on one of the very first stages, which is inclusion safety. And specifically, we're looking at what are some of the barriers to inclusion safety. And our last event, we had four amazing speakers who joined us, three panelists. And this time around, we're doing something that I've done in my live events where the panelists are you, meaning that those of you who are here who have some insight, who would like to share, would like to participate, I invite you to be my co-host by either raising your hand or putting a comment in the chat and saying, hey, Carlin, I have a perspective on this, or we're working on this in my workplace. Here's a win, or here's a challenge we have. So I invite you to participate, to share, to use your voice, and most importantly, to move past that discomfort so that we can create a brave space together and continue having meaningful conversations. So tonight, we continue to acknowledge the land through action. I don't know if some of you saw yet another grave site of the genocide of young Indigenous children were discovered again. And we know that it will continue until all the children are discovered. So I acknowledge the land again through action that I'm standing on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We also acknowledge all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past. And those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly forcibly displaced Africans, brought here as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. Today, I pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. And I invite you as well, when you do acknowledge the land. And when I first moved to Toronto, I'm an immigrant from St. Lucia, born and raised in the Caribbean. I felt very, like it's almost like hypocritical to say and acknowledge the land without acknowledging the people who were stewards and who took care of the land for so many centuries. So for me, every single day, I try my best to show support through action. And I encourage you as well to do the same. Read up on the missing women, missing and murdered women and Indigenous women, but also the Truth and Reconciliation Report. There are multiple actions there in terms of how you can inform the action that you take. So continue to do your learning through action, not just learning and listening, but to me, and I'm offering this to all of you, if it resonates with you, I invite you to adopt it as well. When we make a lifestyle change and we ensure that we're including Indigenous and Black folks as part of our social justice, then when yet another public injustice happens, we don't have to scramble to look for information. We don't have to scramble to ask, what can I do? Because again, the information is there. If we continue to make it a part of our practice, we will become better. And most importantly, active citizens who will also ensure that every single person in this country is receiving the justice and the equity that they need. So today we're continuing our discussion on psychological safety and talking about what it isn't. So psychological safety, it isn't about being nice. It's not about being politically correct or coddling folks who want to play victim. And it's not about absolving individuals. And I actually amended that. Dr. Timothy Clark's original statement states that it's not about absolving individuals of accountability. I added an institutions as well. And we'll talk a little bit about tonight, which is about, we're talking about gaslighting and the various types of gaslighting. We'll talk a little bit about institutional gaslighting as well. And it's not about being soft, permissive, indulgent, or singing kumbaya. Psychological safety is about acknowledging our common humanity, respecting others, and then working together in pursuit of meaningful contribution. And this is what we're talking about tonight. Tonight, the last session, if you attended the last session, and let me know in the comments if you did attend the last session last month. We talked about the 4 stages, and the first stage, which is inclusion safety. And we know a lot of organizations have embarked on creating a more inclusive culture. But what does that mean when it comes to ensuring that Black, Indigenous, and other historically marginalized groups are at the center of the social justice within the workplace? So, inclusion safety, which is about respect, making sure team members show up as their authentic selves, inclusion without conditions. And this is where we'll be focusing a little bit tonight. But just to refresh your memory on the 4 stages, we have learner safety. If you're a team leader within your organization, how are you ensuring that all of those 4 stages of psychological safety are actually a part of your culture and it's a part of your leadership behavior and communication as well? Okay, just check in here. Tracy said I was here last session. Thank you, Tracy, for coming back. Really great to have you. Todd said he wasn't at the last session, but he's, yes, Todd, we do have a recording plus the slides. So I believe we have your email address for this one. So we will ensure that you get our first session. Actually, oh, Jean-Marc Moki is here. Jean-Marc, amazing last session. Jean-Marc was one of our experts on the last panel as well, doing some incredible work around organizational safety and organizational psychology and looking at authenticity and leadership. And he's also the founding one of the founding members of the Black Students in Psychology Network at York University, who is our partner on our research as well. Thank you so much, Jean-Marc, for being here. Ashley said she enjoyed the last session. Thank you, Ashley. And we're really excited to build this group and this relationship together because I believe you are the ones who will be at the forefront of this work. Psychological safety and this 4 stages, huge in the US, some parts of Europe, but in Canada, from an organization perspective, I think we're slowly getting there. There are some organizations who have centered psychological safety and made it a part of the culture. And I know that with the rest of you here, we will create more momentum around psychological safety in the workplace. So what is it? Dr. Clark and many are claiming, and I also see the value because the clients that we work with on our consulting and training side, we have really centered is the solution for both social injustice and market turbulence. Humans yearn for inclusion and belonging. We're wired for it. It's a part of our makeup. It's a part of our psyche. And we want to learn, we want to contribute, and we want to make a difference. And the 4 stages is the roadmap for that, for individuals and organizations to achieve and maintain high levels of psychological safety. So to set the stage for our time here today, I invite you to watch the 6-minute video, and then I'm going to open up the discussion to hear from some of you in terms of your thoughts on what was discussed, and then we'll go through some strategies and wrap up with some next steps and what to expect as we move forward.
Do you have someone in your life, maybe a colleague or even a family member, who says things like, oh, come on, I never said that? Or you're just being oversensitive? Or maybe, I don't know why you're making such a big fuss about this. Well, if so, you might be experiencing gaslighting. Carlin Purcell is here now to talk to us about this kind of manipulation that can become very dangerous. Hey, Car, can you just start by explaining what gaslighting is?
Yes, so gaslighting is a form of psychological. Seems like some of you cannot see the video. So let me stop sharing and only audio, no video. Okay, thank you, Leanne. Let me try this again. Just bear with me. I don't know why it's not. How's that? Can everybody see?
Oh, that looks better.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Come on, I never said that. Or you're just being oversensitive. Or maybe, I don't know why you're making such a big fuss about this. Well, if so, you might be experiencing gaslighting. Carlin Purcell is here now to talk to us about this kind of manipulation that can become very dangerous. Hey, Car, can you just start by explaining what gaslighting is?
Yes, so gaslighting is a form of psychological abuse where a person or a group makes someone question their sanity, their perception of reality, or their memories. And people who are experiencing gaslighting are often made to feel anxious and unable to trust themselves. And there are multiple ways in which we experience that, Tracy. First is countering. This is when, folks say that, hey, are you sure it happened this way? Are you sure you're remembering things accurately? This is where they question your memory. There's also withholding, where folks refuse to engage in the discussion, in the reality of what actually happened. And then there is trivializing, where folks go directly to, you're making a big deal. You're too sensitive. Why are you always bringing that up? This is not how things happened. This is where folks totally invalidate your concerns and your feelings.
Definitely been there. Let's talk about denial. Would denial be one of the ways to gaslight a person?
Absolutely. This is where, folks actually deny things actually happened, or, they question, they tell you that you forgot, or I'm not sure that this is how this happened. And there's also diverting as well, in the sense of removing the focus of the conversation or the concern to something totally different and something that did not happen. So, for example, they put the onus back on you and say, hey, Carlin, you got another crazy idea from one of your friends. Where is that coming from? And there is stereotyping. And this one, actually, there's an article in the American Sociological Review that actually states that folks can use stereotyping, intentionally use stereotyping based on your gender, your race, your ethnicity, to gaslight you, again, making you feel that your perception of reality isn't correct, or your memory of how the events happened isn't as it was.
Yeah, women get that a lot. This whole idea of women being crazy or overly emotional, or you guys are insane. It's like there's something there. There's some stereotyping happening there and gaslighting at the same time. So where are we gaslighted the most, Car?
Honestly, we are gaslighted in every single area of our lives. The thing is, a lot of us have normalized that behavior. We're used to folks, telling us that, it didn't really happen that way. So we make it a part of our reality or part of our interaction with others. So it's important for us to understand that it happens at work, it happens in relationships, it happens at home. And another example of that is, a doctor trivializing a person's, health concern. So telling them that, it's all in your head. The pain is not as strong as you're thinking it to be. Or in some cases, we have racial gaslighting, and that applies to groups of individuals based on race and ethnicity. And an example of intersectional gaslighting, Tracy, is, and a very clear example that's coming up for me, is Serena Williams. When she told doctors during the birth of her daughter she was in pain, right? This is where you see the racial gaslighting, because the stereotyping where, a lot of folks think that Black women do not have pain, or we have a very high threshold for pain. So this is another example of how intersectional gaslighting can show up.
It's also shown up with, there's an Indigenous woman, I know that her case is being highlighted in Canada, and she was in pain in a hospital setting, and she was being completely ignored. So, which is when things get dangerous, right? So this is what
Absolutely.
I want to know. You're in the moment, you're having the conversation, you are being gaslighted, you're being taken on a ride, you're being told that you do not know what you know. What do you do in that moment?
And this is where courage comes in, Tracy. Give yourself permission to feel all the feelings. And I know it can be hard because, like I said, we normalize it. We feel it in all different areas of our lives. So sometimes going against the grain in terms of accepting the gaslighting, we will feel a little bit uncomfortable. But give yourself permission to stand in that moment of courage and to own your truth. This is the beginning of how we can take our power back from being gaslighted.
Yeah, you got to speak up, right? And if you're dealing with a narcissist, they always say just get out, because the narcissist is never going to lose. Would you ever be in a situation like that with gaslighting?
Yes.
Do you ever just get out and say, I know what I know, and I'm not going to engage with you anymore?
Absolutely. It is really up to you to understand what is happening here, especially if it's a stereotype-driven one, Trace. It's important for you to protect yourself, own your truth, but ensure that you're prioritizing your safety first.
And then what steps can the person take after?
Again, we cannot control what people do, so the steps I'm going to provide, the onus is on you. Again, taking that moment to stand in your courage. Keep a secret diary. Record times, dates, how things actually happened. Another thing is to talk to a trusted friend, a counselor.
seek professional help. It's extremely important to know that we do not have to go through this alone. The other thing is to keep a voice note, keep voice memos, just on your phone. The second something happens, just press record it, and have it with you. And of course, taking pictures. Again, use the tools that you have at your disposal so that you can record it. We cannot control what folks say or do, Trace, but what we can control is how we react and the steps we take after we realize or we recognize that we have been gaslighted.
Really good information there, Carlin. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate it.
Okay, so I would love to hear from some of you. Any thoughts? What came up for you as you? Whoops.
Every day. I react every day, but the fundamental.
As you watch the video, what are your thoughts on gaslighting? What stood out for you the most? Just take yourself off mute. Would like to hear from a few of you before we move forward.
Hi, Carlin.
Hi, Patricia.
How are you?
Carlin, can you spotlight Patricia, please? Thank you.
Oh.
Thanks for being here.
This is Unique. So nice to see you.
Unique.
So, yeah, is that okay?
I was saying, yeah, absolutely. Was it you and then Patricia? Okay.
Yeah.
Unique.
I'll wait. I'm Patricia.
Okay. I wasn't sure who spoke. Patricia, sorry.
Yeah.
You're in my line of sight. So
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
I just wanted, first of all, that was a powerful segment to listen and watch, because I think those are the things that we put across as just people being ignorant and we don't do anything with it. But it gets into us and it chips away at us. And I love the one word that resonated for me is the courage, to be courageous, to stand and address it. And I'm just saying to a colleague of mine the other day, it's our time. It's our time to be courageous and name these things. So I wanted to thank you for validating that.
Oh, thank you, Patricia. Thanks for being on today's panel. Yannick, please go ahead. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. So I think everything made sense to me, but I also am wondering if you can talk about, is there like a subjectivity to gaslighting? What's the risk in terms of all of our personal experiences and the tape recordings that we have in our head? So, I'm thinking about it from somebody else's perspective, particularly as we're having many conversations around race and equity, and how do we get to differentiate between like my experience and saying this is gaslighting and somebody else saying, well, no, that was either like just my opinion. And that's, I guess, my question, if you can talk about that a little bit more, and the risk of it being subjective. And part of that I'll say is there's times when I'm wondering if, did I feel like I was experiencing gaslighting, but sometimes through other conversations, and likely not going to be about a racial conversation, but are there times that other perspectives have been shared that might have opened me up, and therefore that was not gaslighting? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
a lot. It's loaded.
It's such a great question. It's also one that I struggled with, because for years myself, working in the financial industry for 20 years, I went through many instances of moments of, was that? No, it wasn't, So that self-doubt is, I'm not saying that it is normal, but it's a part of the journey. And what I have learned from my experience and just talking to others and working with other, folks who have similar experiences, Yannick, is that if you are feeling it, if it's coming up for you, this is your truth. And that's the only thing that matters. Whether or not someone have a different experience from you, that's okay. That's their experience. And this is why it's important for us to surround ourselves with professional help, because you can have someone else who can give you a professional feedback or perspective that can help you to, dive in deeper and assess. And because we have normalized it for so long too, sometimes when you're speaking to someone else, they might tell you, no, it's not a big deal. They might still be coming from their bias in terms of what we have absorbed from our environment, especially in the workplace, because gaslighting, especially racial gaslighting, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, is very rampant in corporate organizations. It's only now, when we look at for the last year, it's only now we have organizations talking about race and talking about anti-Blackness and anti-racism. And I know folks often tend to say, don't make everything about race. But how can we not when the world use race to judge us and to define who we are? So again, the normalization, and I use the language of, as we decolonize our mindset, for a lot of us, there are a lot of Black and other racialized folks who are operating from that colonized mindset. And for a lot of us, we don't see it because we're in it. And we have conformed because we want to survive in the unsafe workplaces. So we have normalized a lot of things. So while I, have the consciousness and the awareness, I'm unpacking my colonized mindset as part of my racial healing work, I will also encounter folks who look like me, who might have similar experiences, and who might say the total opposite of what I'm saying. And that, again, that's okay, because we're all on that individual journey. But the more we have conversations around it, the more we can, build more different, look at the multiplicity. Again, because the Black experience is not a monolith, the healing experience isn't either, but we can have the different multiplicity of those experiences, which really adds to the collective healing process for us as African folks as well. I hope I answered your question, Yanni. Great question. Thanks for asking. And if there's anyone else who have a perspective to share as well, feel free to chime in. Todd, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Here I am in front of everyone. Hi, everyone. So I love, and I'm going to echo what Patricia said. Thank you so much for echoing the need for courageousness and bravery. Like, I think that's really, really important. I think also, you know what, actually, before I start that, I just want to put up my hand and just own my own truth too, because I am certain that I am guilty of having been a gaslighter at one time or another. And being here is part of my journey of sort of fixing sort of that reality as well. And all of that to say, because I also have sort of a longish history in financial services, so I kind of understand, sort of the environment that you're describing, Carolyn. I also think that there's an onus on, on whether it's human resources leaders or whoever, right, to not only expect that courageousness and bravery, but also to create something of a space of safety so that it's possible to have those kinds of conversations, and so that folks can can heal, can figure it out, they can recognize it when it's happening, not just because it's easy to recognize it when it's happening to you, but it's not as easy to recognize it when you're doing it. And I don't know that I have a question. Maybe I do. If you got something to add to that, that would be really good, because you've always given me really smart things.
No, you're right, Todd, because, and again, when you look at it through the lens of, allyship as well, because white folks also need to do their own work and healing as well, as part of the role that they played in being complicit in holding up, systems of inequity, in being gatekeepers for white supremacy, right? And being, a part of the overrepresentation of white leadership as well. So to your point, if you are aware of it, Todd, and you understand the implications, especially through the lens of, racial gaslighting, then you can be a better ally. You can be a better leader. You can be a better, when you're giving feedback to folks who are different from you, you can now meet them where they are, because you're coming from an informed place. And that inclusion safety is not just through the lens of the majority group or the white gaze, the inclusion safety that each and every one of, leaders are building or curating, it is coming from the lens of, that multiplicity of identity, whether it's race, ethnicity. And I often remind folks, that we did not create race as a social construct. So we're not responsible for fixing it. We are only responsible for healing and for ensuring that we are remembering who we are, and we are reclaiming our rites of passage through our ancestral wisdom, and of course through other tools as we go through the process. But dead on, Todd, the work continues for everyone, and there are different layers to it as we go through the journey as well. Anyone else would like to share any thoughts before I continue and I move on?
Hi, it's Anika.
Hi, Nika. Hello. Thanks for joining. Welcome.
Thank you. One of the things that I've been working on in our company is building a culture of brave spaces, and moving away from using safe spaces as our way of defining the space. And why we use that is because the idea that safety can sometimes be conflated with comfort.
Yes.
and often that centers the white experience. And so, which is why we're moving towards brave spaces, but with centering safety for people of color, right? So that we can participate in those spaces. And so the courageousness is not only dependent on the person of color to confront, because often our livelihoods are at stake, or we believe that they are. Uh, that's why we focus more on bravery. So it allows people who are, so for us to, it's a lot of work. We still have a lot of ways to go, but it allows us to more confront the conversations and use intent and impact as our way of showing that we're not talking about good and bad. We're talking about, we're calling out the behaviors, right? Actually calling people in to self-reflect and be self-aware in those behaviors, which are harder to find. And that's, I think gaslighting, to Todd's point, it's actually really hard to see on both sides. Right. But if we are, spending more time self-reflecting and acting as mirrors for each other, we can have those brave conversations that calls out the behaviors.
Absolutely. And I love, Anika, what you said around reframing, moving away from safe and using brave spaces, because that brings in that human equity versus looking at it from, well, racialized folks need equity, or, LGBTQ folks need equity. No, if we look at it through the lens of human equity, what we're also saying is that also white folks need psychological safety so that they can start unpacking the role that they have played. Even if your ancestors did not own slave and so forth, you're still you're still getting that unearned privilege because of whiteness being the norm for so many different things from an institutional and structural level. So I'm really happy that you're reframing that, because language, it drives not just our perception of the world, but it also drives how we show up as leaders in the workplace and for centuries. And, when I'm doing my training with organizations, I tell them, especially for the banks, I say, I worked for 20 years, in the financial industry. I did not have the privilege of saying white supremacy, of naming the elephant in the room. I didn't. I left because the psychological weight was too much and it was costing me too much. And also I wanted to pivot because I felt like I was called to do something different, but I didn't have that. But now we do. So look at the power of language. For a lot of us, we can now name it. So that gives us a little bit more room for us to navigate in a more impactful way as well. Because not naming, and I'm going to continue my slide, my sharing here, and looking forward, keep sharing your thoughts in the group chat as well. Not naming or not being able to name white supremacy or, white supremacist systems or the behavior as part of a barrier, an institutional barrier in the workplace, cost racialized folks a lot. It put the weight and the pressure on racialized folks to conform and to fit. And while organizations are standing and saying that, inclusion matters, we're building inclusive cultures, every single person of color sitting in those town halls and in those meetings are going like, that sinking feeling in our stomachs. Yeah, but that does not include me, because the accountability wasn't demonstrated, because they still weren't naming a lot of the things that we're talking about here today. So talking about institutional barriers to inclusion safety, 34%, Census Canada, there was a research over the pandemic that said that, who experienced discrimination the most over the course of the pandemic. The most commonly reported form of discrimination was based on race or skin color, followed by discrimination based on age, physical appearance, ethnicity and culture, and sex. We know that racism is a problem in Canada and is an issue at work for 1 in 5 Canadians, according to Mona Chappelle. 1 in 5 Canadians. The incidence is higher among Black Canadians. The majority, 62%, agree or strongly agree that racial discrimination is a problem in their own workforce. And what do organizations do? They ask for business cases. They ask to justify. They create ERG groups with unearned or unpaid positions. So you have racialized folks continuing to work for free to fix a problem that we did not cause. These are examples of institutional gaslighting. These are examples of institutional barriers, because in spite of the research, in spite of the statistics, we are still at a place where organizations are asking individuals to justify why we need to have racial equity in the workplace. So we talked about what gaslighting is. And again, as you saw, it was around from 1944. I believe gaslighting is due for an upgrade in terms of language and relevance as well. When we look at it through the lens of today, in today's society, in terms of cultural relevance, then we know that the various types of gaslighting that I touched on briefly when I was talking to Tracy. But these are the four examples that I would like to focus on. One being institutional gaslighting. This is where the organization may deny or hide information, lie to employees about their rights. Again, these are very outdated definitions, but they still allude and speak to our current reality. What are some examples of this? As I mentioned and as I showed you before, the stats are here. A lot of organizations, talk about, we want to come from a place of an informed place. What did the statistics say? What did the data say? And the data is there, and we're still not at a place where racial equity or gender and racial equity is centered when it comes, especially for Black women. So D&I policies and practices are still rooted in the white gaze. If the decision makers are largely white, and again, this is not to say that the onus is on hiring a Black or racialized DEI person. Just sharing from what the research is showing. It shows that there is a lot of inaction, and a lot of the D&I policies are still focused on women. And when we look at it, it's focused on white women. There isn't an intersectional lens that also addresses the barriers and the struggles that the overrepresentation of white leadership is causing for racialized groups in the workplace. A lot of organizations are still treating anti-racism as an elective versus as a competency within leadership and organizational practices. So when we talk about inclusion safety, it needs to begin with centering anti-racism, anti-oppression as a leadership competency, expanding your existing leadership practices within your workplace. This is where we begin, because the second organizations are still using it as an elective. And when I hear language or conversations such as, we're doing the inclusive leadership practice, but we will do anti-racism later. It tells me that the leader, the decision-making person at the table, still did not get it, and they are still operating from that white supremacy mindset or colonized mindset as well. So racial gaslighting it's applied to a group or people based on race or ethnicity. So with the creation of race as an ideology, the number one factor that was used by those who created the social construct was to deny the impact of the dehumanization of enslaved Africans and other folks as well. That was at the core and at the center. And that gaslighting is still a part of our culture and our society today. So again, a lot of denial. Why do you want to make everything about race? Why must you always bring up race? Why are we talking about race? Are you sure it happened that way? Again, forms of gaslight. And I remember there were multiple instances where it showed up for me and I didn't want to go to HR because I just didn't feel like they had the tools to deal with it. And what I did was ended up, going outside of work. So in addition to the barriers, the pay, barriers, the advancement barriers, and the lack of psychological safety Black women and Black people face in the workplace, we also have to take money out of our pockets and get help outside of work. So there's a further, impact and barrier on us as well, in addition to some of the things that I mentioned. So an example, again, a person might criticize civil rights activists for being too emotional, or why are people, protesting? Why do they have to protest that way? So there's a lot of tone policing, behavior policing that continues to happen. Again, another form of gaslighting, and political gaslighting. When a political figure or group uses lies, denials, or manipulate information to control people, downplaying or hiding things the administration has done wrong, or using controversy to divert attention from important events. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you can think of a very relevant example of political gaslighting right now. Look at what's happening with the 215 and now the 751 children who were recently found, a genocide that Canada actively participated in, the Catholic Church and the government, and both are sending very, messages. We're sorry, our hearts are in there, but they're not doing anything on the institutional side to actually create the change. When the change that is needed, the community, when I think of, Dr. Palm, she has put it out there. She sent a video directly to the Prime Minister saying, here's what we want, here's what we need. And still, organizations, politicians and those in power are still not acknowledging the harm that has been done. So again, we continue to see gaslighting being played out, and medical gaslighting, as you heard, as Tracy shared the example of Joyce, the Indigenous, woman who was, she experienced medical gaslighting, and we see it also, it happens all the time with Black women as well, when it comes to going to the doctor or finding help. And we see it, I would also go as far as to say that workplace wellness gaslighting as well, in the sense that a lot of organizations do not have racially and culturally diverse well-being practitioners in their employee assistance program, for their workplace wellness programs. And a lot of organizations, another trend I'm seeing that's very harmful and dangerous, they are implementing mental health strategies without a psychological safety strategy in place, which is very likely to continue, not just the gaslighting, but also to continue the racial macroaggression and other forms of psychological problems in the workplace. So on the individual, so before I go on the individual, any more questions? I'd just like to pause to check in and to see anyone else would like to share your thoughts on the last slide or anything else that you'd like to add. Thank you, Anika, for sharing in the group chat. I experienced years of racial gaslighting. The PTSD is real. It is. It is. It broke me, and this is why I left the industry. Yannick said, thanks so much. The fact that it has been normalized so much is really connecting for me. Yes. And this is where the courage comes in, because we have to pay attention to our lives for us to understand what feels right. Emotions are data, and emotions is a bodily sensation. So sometimes for a lot of us who have made, holding the stress in our shoulders or in our body, if we've normalized that, it's very hard for you to recognize it. And sometimes the awareness and the learning of it is even more painful than the experience that you have been through, because you're now creating space for you to heal, and that journey can look different depending on where you are. So I'd like to open it up for anyone who would like to share some thoughts or anything you'd like to add. Patricia, yes, go ahead, please. Thank you.
I thank you so much for that. There's just such deep learning, and I'm sitting over here on fire, listening to you. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you should come home with me. There's so much to learn. But what I wanted to ask you is, how do you? I mean, I know about the being courageous, but think of being in the moment when you're in positions where you might be the only one, which have been, and you're amongst colleagues who will say things with such microaggression behind it, but it's
Mhm,
hard for you to put your finger on it and say,
mhm.
this is what they're doing, but you're the one impacted.
Yes.
And you go to your to those above or in HR to talk about it, and they look at you and say, "Are you sure you really understand what they were saying? Like, why would you think that? Like, how do you, what kind of comeback do you have to, I mean, other than, I know what I did, but I'm just still, and I want to break it down to students, because
Yeah.
here we are as adults,
Yeah.
right? The frontal lobe fully working, we have lots of knowledge, we're gaining
Mhm.
insight. Think of our young people in
Yeah.
schools,
Mhm.
where even if their body, and they look around, I see a lot more people like themselves. The people teaching them, the people who are the administrators or the superintendents, often do not even look like them. What do we teach our kids? How do we teach them to address these things?
And it's such a, layered, and there isn't a straight answer to it, Patricia, but I think it's multiple. So I see it as, of course, continuing the conversation and raising the awareness. So, as Oprah said, how can we bring vulnerability into the workplace?
Hmm.
When Sister Talk Group and we appeared on Oprah's live class, she said, show them the life class. So
Okay.
I'm gonna do an Oprah right now and say, first of all, show them the gaslighting video with Tracy and myself. So that's one. The second thing that I would say is, and I didn't do this when I first joined the bank when I moved here in 2003, but what I would say is to have your 5 steps or your 3 tips. What are the things that you will do in the moment when you know that you have been whether gaslighted through racial, and there's a racial microaggression, um, having your little your circle of support. So that can look like, so if you know that you're going back to Todd's point, if you're not aware, if those leaders are not trained in true inclusive leadership competencies and skills, most likely if you go and share that with that person, they will not be able to support you, and they might actually create more racial macroaggressions because of their response. So it's unfortunate because we don't get to bring our full selves to work or have full support of managers,
Right.
though managers believe that they are being very inclusive. So that's one. So knowing who you can go to and who you can trust. Because, and the other thing I'd like to say about trust is not just about cognitive trust. When you look at the science behind trust, there's emotional trust and there's cognitive trust. So you might have cognitive trust in your leader, meaning that you believe in the skill set in terms of the management part of the job. But when it comes to the emotional trust, that might not be there. And that's okay, because your number one, the very first thing that you have to do is protect yourself. So having a group, someone that you can talk to outside. And I would say, again, if there's someone who have decision-making power and you have that emotional trust with them, then I would take that to them. Go to the person within the organization who have the influence, who can, advocate on your behalf. And we need to have those conversations with the young ones, because they will not necessarily understand what's happening unless we adults, those of us who have the knowledge and have the experience, have the conversation with them. And the third thing that I would say, which is actually something we're working on, we'll have more details coming soon, is to re-ground ourselves in our cultural heritage, in our cultural confidence. We have to go back or remember who we are and where we came from. So we're actually working on a leadership program specifically for racialized groups, reclaiming our leadership rites of passage. So that's coming soon as well. So rebuilding and reminding ourselves who we're grounding ourselves in our culture, our ethnic pride, who we are as Africans, is important for us to also do this as part of the work as well.
Thank you
I know
so much.
we saw some hands coming up. Thank you, Patricia. Great question. I am not seeing any. Let me see if I can scroll. Tracy, Cindy. I don't know if I'm calling your names in the order you raised your hand. And then Leanne. So Cindy, if you can go ahead. Oh, Tracy, Cindy, and then Leanne.
Yeah, I'm always so thankful to listen to you, and you've helped me and healed me in many ways. This time last year, I was just ready to give up, and listening to you, and I felt like you were speaking directly to me, which happens every time, even today. But I'm able to pass it on. So I just spoke to a colleague today. Unfortunately, I didn't get to her in time because she quit her management job for these very reasons, and has decided to just be an independent contractor. And I wish I had spoke to and heard about her trials beforehand. Same idea, gaslighting, her trying to be a leader and then being undermined by someone above her, and she left. And so I'm trying my best to console her, to validate her, to give her those feelings that it wasn't in your imagination. But so many people get to this breaking point where they just, I'm going to leave like an executive position. And you wonder, where was her network? Why didn't she have anyone she could trust? She said, I just throw in the towel.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Tracy, for sharing that. And it's true. It's just 2 weeks ago, same very senior person. And I had to scramble to find Carol Sandy, who was on our last panel, to create some time with that person. Because yes, folks are ready to leave because the emotional weight is too much. And this is why I want us to continue having deeper conversations. So those who are out there and they feel like they're alone, because that's what it feels like. It feels like you're alone. It feels like you're crazy. Here are some of the signs. Not crazy, sorry, I don't want to use that language. You feel, you're being too sensitive. So there's a lot of self-blame that happens, right? We're constantly apologizing for who we are. And when you are constantly having that internal battle with yourself, you are literally decreasing your self-agency and your self-confidence. It eats away at you. And it's not like we're not confident beings, but it's just that because of the external systems and the external
Just
systems
gonna
negatively at
try to
play,
get
that is
and
what is
leave.
chipping away at us.
We're gonna get it.
Cindy and then Leanne. Cindy, share.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi,
Can you hear
Cindy.
me?
Go ahead, please. Yes, I can.
I think okay. So I actually, first of all, thank you so much. I can't write as fast as you're talking. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having this. Now, the question that I have, what do you do when you're speaking up of instances of anti-Black racism, just problematic toxic behaviors, you're being gaslighted the whole way through the whole process, even when engaging with HR. You've called in your network, you've accessed the supports, you've done it all. You have a little bit left in you to still fight, but even your body is telling you it's time to give up, but you want to keep going. How do you find that little bit of hope you have left? It's you're either going to use it on seeing it through and continuing the fight, or you're going to use it to find a job. How do you navigate through that? And I know that's a very multifaceted question.
Yes, it's a great one too, Cindy. And when I think of my own experience, what I did was that I pivoted. I took my skills and I repackaged it, and I decided to go start my own company. And I'm not saying that that is the route for everyone, just to share that there are multiple ways to do this. The other thing that I would say is that, and I remember, I think it was Robin, what's her name, from Good Morning America. She talked about emotional anorexia, where we're at a table where we're not being fed and we believe that that's the only table available. There might be another table that is better suited for you, because sometimes the ancestors and our guides, our God, whatever language you use, they put us in certain circumstances so that we can wake up to our potential. We can wake up to redesigning or reclaiming what I call, your purpose center. Because to me, your job is your purpose center, right? That thing that where you use your unique ability, your skills, your talents, that my purpose center. So KDPM Group is my purpose center. And through that center, I do work and I create learning opportunities and engagement opportunities for us to have conversations, that matter on making Black Lives Matter, not just in the workplace, but in general.
Check the other corner.
Oh, there's someone who's speaking. If you can just put yourself on mute. Thank you so much. So it might be something where, Cindy, you might have to go back to the drawing board and take a look at, here are all my strengths, here are all the things I'm great at, here are all the things I've done within that organization, in that space, and in that role. And what would you like to do with that rest of hope? I would really treat that hope, that 20, 50, 20, whatever percentage you have left, treat it as gold, and be honest with yourself, and don't be afraid to, maybe there is another role within the company you're at, or maybe there's another way for you to use that hope and to leverage it for your greatest success. Because if your body is telling you, please don't ignore your body. Black women have the highest rate of heart disease, fibroids, and all the other illnesses, because we are carrying that trauma in our bodies, and our bodies are not a container for trauma. We deserve better. We deserve more. We deserve joy. We deserve psychological safety. We deserve great bosses. We deserve great people who see us as full humans. We deserve our wholeness. So I'd invite you to actually think about that. And again, if you need some more resources, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to share some more. Thank you so much for your question, Leanne. And then Tiffany. Oh, hi, Tiffany. Thanks for joining.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Always love to hear Carlin talk. I always get such a, I don't know, I feel it in my soul, and she's doing so many good things. I hear what everyone's been saying about, wanting to leave those situations, having also experienced that myself. And deciding to go work on my own, but also deciding to move towards looking at the board's role in advancing organization and helping them address some of the barriers that are there. And I'm just wondering if you had any thoughts on that, particularly from like how the board can help investigate or help, deal with institutional gaslighting and, even like the performativeness sometimes that their organizations are going through, and how they can help improve that, and even sometimes amongst the board themselves. I like what you said about trust, because I've heard it twice this week from two different people. Business moves at the speed of trust. And I don't know how true that statement is. I get it, but I still feel that there are some people who are moving really quickly and they haven't really created trust amongst in their workplaces.
That's such a great question, Leanne. And that talk about businesses move at the sign of trust, I can definitely see it being true where there is an overrepresentation of white leadership, right? Because then there's that echo chamber and they're all supporting each other and patting each other on the back with the performative work. Boards can play such a great role. And to me, this is where, from an organizational structure, when you look at, to me, the number one way to lower your institutional gaslighting is to ensure that your ESG, or your social corporate responsibility goal, reflects the social issues or the injustices that the systems of inequity are continuously perpetuating. So there needs to be some change. A board should not only, be there to collect at the end of the year, or to sit on a meeting just to say you're on a board. And I know, we know from a morality bank account perspective, not everyone really cares in terms of their moral bank account. A lot of folks, tend to say that, well, people will care if they hear my story, or if they see the stats. We have tons of stats and stories, and we still haven't seen the change that we need. So on the board level, I would say the work needs to start there. Revisiting your ESG goals or your corporate social responsibility goals. I want to say, to lean on, there are some individual folks who are really interested in operating from their morality bank account. They want to do the right thing. They want to lead and live by their values, but there needs to be consensus on the majority group to ensure that this is moving forward. And this is why, and I say it, I tell myself, I will not see the dismantling of white supremacy in my lifetime. And it's a bit sad and frustrating, and it angers me, but also it's a reality that I have accepted. So which means that how I'm choosing to work as I move forward will look different, because, I do not want the next 40, 50 years of my life to be rooted in colonized trusts. I don't want that or colonized emotions or colonized rage, meaning that we're constantly being shocked by the lack of action by boards and by those groups. But we have to continue the conversation. We are the customers. We are the ones. And I'm seeing more and more research. So I'm hoping that things will change, Leanne, in the sense that, customers actually want to shop and give their money to organizations and brands who are actually doing the right thing. So I feel like we will get there, but it requires each and every one of us showing up and being in our wholeness, whether you identify as white or you identify as, as African, as Black, Indigenous. This is the gateway first to get there. Tiffany, go ahead, please. And then we have Ashley.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Carlin, for hosting this amazing event. I've been listening to all the discussion that everybody is saying, and I think a big telltale sign that you can think of if you feel, or as we're talking about gaslighting, you know. So meaning that, there's little comments of, your tone. There's comments of how articulate that you speak, or, all these little subliminal things, like you've never actually, say, experienced somewhere else. So if you've had more than like one job and you go somewhere and there's all these kind of negative tones or comments, the first thing that always does happen is confusion, because you start, like what are mentioned here on the slide, you start like thinking, what's happening? Like, is it me, right? Yeah. But then I would recommend people to have like mentors, or you have your chosen family, and just be able to run by certain scenarios by people. And when you run by those scenarios, of people who know you well, they're like, have you experienced this anywhere else? So I've experienced gaslighting quite extensively. I'm not in business, but in academia, it does happen. And you aren't alone, but the battle is lonely. So for someone who was mentioning that some people decide to leave, I do understand that, because from organizations, things have to come from the top down, and you're one person. And even if you find other people in your organization, if, I hate to say this, buy-in, but if your organization doesn't see buy-in and actually take action, rather than say, we stand against anti-Black racism, or we stand against racism, you kind of feel helpless, and you have to be in tune with your mental health. Because imagine you're experiencing those microaggressions, you still have to perform well, or twice as well. You still have to be able to survive, and nobody knows how you feel. So I know some people are like, why do people leave? Like, no one knows how it feels to endure so much stress in the workplace. So continue to fight for as much as you can, but when you're seeing your organization is just, say, given lip service as opposed to actions, maybe it's not the organization for you.
Oh, thank you so much, Tiff. And we need to have you back and as one of our guest speakers, because I know you have such an incredible story to tell, Tiff.
Yes, and I hope to share in great lengths one day.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I know we're at a time, so I'm just going to go to our last slides. What to do, again, understanding that from an institutional perspective, if you don't have the decision-making power, then it means that the institution or the policies and practices within the institution, like a lack of racially and culturally diverse well-being practitioners, an HR with an overrepresentation of white leadership with no cultural competencies, these institutional gaslighting policies, because that's what they are. If the policy isn't there to include the history of historically marginalized groups, then it means that the department, the group, you're being complicit in upholding policies that is continuing to oppress historically marginalized groups. So what can you do on the individual level? As Tiffany mentioned, you're one person, so it might be hard to every day to keep on. It's exhausting. Keeping a secret diary, talking to a trusted family, a member or friend or a counselor, taking photos, keeping voice memos, and yes, the antidote on the personal level is greater emotional awareness and self-regulation. So trusting that what you're feeling, this is how we rebuild trust in self. Being in the workplace for 20 years, it erodes your trust in self. It eroded my trust in self, my confidence in self. This is why I actually started this work, because I wanted to reclaim my wholeness. I wanted to reclaim Carlin. And because of that, we are here today. So give yourself the permission. And as I mentioned, the reason why we're doing this, the conversation series, is because we are doing a research from the Canadian lens. What do Black women need? And we decided to focus on Black women in the first phase, because Black women are not only underserved, but for the most part, misogynoir at the intersectionality of gender and race. Our issues or our concerns and our wants and needs are often swept under the rug, or in some cases, it is enveloped in the whole women empowerment movement, which is really all about white feminism. So we would like, I think, Jillian, what number are we at right now? We need some more to meet our quota. We're hoping to get 100 women as part of our study. So please send it out to your friends, send it out to your network. Help us to get there. It's a very small team, just myself and Jaylene. Everything is coming out of pocket. We don't have a sponsor yet. We're hoping to have a sponsor, but we're doing this work because we believe in it. We believe in it, and we believe in the full potential of not just Black women and our contribution to the workplace and society at large, but Black people in general. So you can partner with us. You can sponsor our research with us as well. We are working with Minerva. I don't know if Minerva, I think I saw Minerva on here. Minerva is helping us partnering with us so we can get our sponsorship package together and other resources so that we can share with you. And the guide is coming. The guide will include what is needed on the 4 stages, but also what you can do to ensure that you're prioritizing Black lives in the workplace. If you would like to find out for your organization where you are on your score for psychological safety for your team, there's also an assessment that we do. Our company, we're certified in it. The modeling behavior of the leader is the #1 factor, right? From a subconscious brain processing perspective, we tend to look at what people do versus what they say. This is why it's important for demonstrated accountability through action is so important. So we will be able to help you to measure psychological safety on your team. The assessment developed and built by Dr. Timothy Clark, it does not include race or any other gender or any other identity markers. And this is why we're being very deliberate with our phases, and we're focusing on Black women in phase 1, and we will be opening it up as well. But if for your organization, you'd like to find out the makeup of your team, let us know, reach out to us. We are booking, I think we have room in September or October. We are shutting down in December and January for refresh and rebuilding. But if you get on our calendar, we might be able to support you for this year. This is what you will expect. We will be sending this out after as well. What do you expect when you take the surveys? Only we need is your email and your name, 15 minutes of your time, and just be honest with us. Be brutally honest. Your name is not going to be on the report. We just want to get the data so we can educate companies on what is needed to be done when it comes to psychological safety in the workplace. I hope you found today's session informative. I think my co-host, my panel, who was brave enough to take themselves off mute, Yannick, Todd, Leanne, Patricia, Ashley, did I miss anybody? Tiffany, thank you all so much for being on tonight's panel, for being here tonight. And I know we're at time, so I will stay back for any one of you who want to stay back or have any additional questions. Stay tuned for an email, and please send an email to hello@kdpmconsultinggroup.com with the name, your email address, and the name for anyone who would like to participate in our survey. We want 100 strong Black women in Canada to help us to get there. Thank you so much again, and I wish you all a great evening. I'll stay on for about 5 minutes for anyone who would like to have any questions or want to share final thoughts, or what stood out to you the most, or what you're walking away with as you go back to your organization.
Carlin, can you just repeat how to get in contact for the 100 women?
Yes, hello@kdpmconsultinggroup.com. I believe Jillian had put it on there, but it went up. 1 second.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, this is it right here. I'm just going to put it in again. Yes, would really appreciate your help in helping us get, and for those of you who might be interested, if you're doing your own racial healing work, I'm hoping I'll have more capacity in the fall and next year, but I have been using this book by Annalise Singh. It's really great. And what I love about this one is that she actually has a section for if you're racialized, so you have different lens. But if you're white, then you have, another lens for you to do your reflection and your processing. So
But did you say her name? What was it? The Racialized Healing Handbook?
The Racial Healing Handbook.
Oh, racial. Okay.
The Racial Healing Handbook.
Okay.
Yes. Racial Healing Handbook. Just going to put it on here for those of you who might want to. And of course, feel free to look for alternative.
Is it Canadian or is it American?
She is from the US.
Okay.
Yes, and feel free to not use, Amazon.
Oh, no. It's I just in my search, because sometimes there's a lot of similar names and just want to make sure I'm getting the right thing.
Understand. Yes. And then I also wanted to mention that because I know some folks would, again, being very intentional with where you put your dollars and who you support.
Yeah, the sadness though is that and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, because we don't have enough research from our end or those who are centered in this work to gather the data for us to use it provincially or nationally. So what you're doing is awesome, and I've already signed up.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you. I appreciate the support. Cindy.
This has been so amazing. The work that you're doing is groundbreaking, and I just think we need more of this. So thank you for that. How can I stay connected and follow up with, because I picked up somewhere you said this is a series that you're doing?
Yes, it's a series where we'll be back in August with a list of our speakers, August, September, October, where we'll be having one a month, possibly two a month before the end of the year. So if you sign up on our website, and you're a part of the psychological safety, I'm going to put it on here. If you're on that mailing list, it means you're a part of our circle, and we will be sending updates, and we will be, you'll be a part of that group. So you will be able to, yes, you will be able to.
And this is the second one.
This is the second one, yes. Did you get a chance to see the first one?
I didn't, but I did ask for it to be sent to me earlier in the chat. So
okay. So you will, yeah, it will be sent to you. Jaylene will send it to you.
Oh, perfect.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Jaylene, are we good to go?
Oh, can I just ask
yes.
one question?
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Is it
Sorry,
Shay? Can you?
My name is Shay, and thank you for what you shared today. It was really amazing. And I guess my question to you is, as you develop tools, is it possible to develop scripts? Because sometimes people are in the moment and they are just so shocked and dumbfounded by what just took place that they don't have the script ready at hand. And yeah, because I know me, I'm an introvert, and it takes a moment for me to process. And so, yeah, I just wonder if that's something that you have or would be open to developing as a resource. I know I could benefit from scripting.
Oh, yeah.
And how do I respond?
Absolutely. I'm also an introvert as well, so I totally hear you. We have to prepare and have the conversation in our mind before we can actually come up with the word. So yeah, we do have scripting. Actually, when I do work with clients, I actually provide them with the script, because when we're in the moment, the brain goes into fight or flight or freeze mode, right? So, and we forget everything. The prefrontal cortex shuts down and we feel like we're 2 or 3 or 5 again. So you're definitely right. So we do have scripting. So in the guide that's coming in the fall, yes, we have like resources, we have trauma-informed, folks, again, all from Canada. And even myself, when we're doing research, the preliminary research, we're shocked. We're like, why are Black women some of the best kept secret here in Canada? Because some of those women, I've never heard about them before, and I've never seen them before. So we will be providing scripts. If there's something you need in particular right now, send me a note. We'll try to get back to you within, at least I would say, the next 2 weeks. Jaylene is going off on vacation actually from tomorrow. So I might, I don't know how fast I'll be able to get back to you, but send
No, that's okay. I think we're connected on LinkedIn. Yeah, so I'll reach out to you. We're connected on LinkedIn. I remember I first saw you years ago, and I bought your planner. It was at
you have the planner.
Brown Girls Who Brunch. You were a panel speaker there. Yeah, it was really good. So no, thank you for everything.
And the planner is a great tool. That was what I used to start reclaiming. Right?
Yes.
It's a great tool because who will you be of service to? Who you're going to network with? What are your goals for the month?
Yeah.
Right. Your gratitude practice. So making well-being and healing a part of our day-to-day is extremely important, so we don't burn out as well. Even though the burnout will come, but at least we can hopefully delay or lessen the impact.
Yeah, agreed. No, thank you, Carlin. Excellent. And I will get myself signed up so I can be a part of the series too.
Fantastic.
Yeah, cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us.